Hey everyone, I'm going live on YouTube. So let me know if you can see the conversation, if you can see me going live, so that I know that there's people watching. I know I'm doing it correctly because I'm very technologically challenged. Yes, okay, I'm going live. Perfect. I think it's working now. Okay. Me and technology just is not a good mix. Okay. Guys, let me know if you can see me. This is for my YouTube folk. And obviously, for anyone that's here, I can see what you guys are writing. So that's working well, thankfully. Yes. Okay, cool. So, guys, for anyone that's on YouTube, feel free to send me any questions that you have on YouTube. I'm going to be doing this on Instagram and on YouTube. It's a busy day. So I'm trying to kind of kill two birds with one stone. That way I have my Instagram audience and my YouTube audience in the same go. So I'll be answering some Instagram questions and some YouTube questions as well. Okay. Cool. Okay, guys. So I'm going to do the intro all over again. I'm Marina. For anyone that's been watching the channel for a while, you probably know that. For anyone else, welcome. I am the girl, the woman who runs the channel. And every video that you've seen ever on the channel has been done with these two hands. Actually, that's not true. I have a videographer, I have an editor, and I just come up with the content and I do the casting. So if I ever reach out to you personally, it's because I still don't have a casting agent, and that's my fault. I should really hire someone because there's not enough hours in the day to do everything. But yeah, guys, YouTube folk, please let me know where you guys are from so that I know. And as for Instagram, guys, welcome to the chat. And someone's asking me a question about let me go through these actually. So all right, let me go through your questions. And you can literally ask any questions. It's just my choice of whether or not I'm going to respond to them or not. Hello guys, hello guys, hello guys. So the topic of the day today is I'm going to answer any questions you have, and that could be about content creation, about cultures, because that is my, I would say, specialty, and also about any personal questions that you have about how it is to run a channel. I'm definitely here to answer that. So I'm going to say hello to my YouTube folk. Hey guys, we have so many countries here. It's incredible. So we have Brazil, we have Vancouver, Indiana, Rwanda, very cool, Iran, very nice. Okay, well, welcome. For anyone that doesn't know, I've already explained it to my Instagram folk, but I do it again because I've had some issues making this live. So originally Russian, born in Moscow. My mom is Russian, my dad is Ukrainian, but he has lived in Russia his whole life. And I moved to Canada when I was 12 years old. Someone just asked me why I don't invite Russians on the channel any longer. That's not necessarily true, but the situation is very complicated, and I just don't want to bring in the political aspect of it. So I just kind of steer clear. But that being said, I have a lot of Russian friends, and actually have a lot of Ukrainian friends. I don't really distinguish between the two. And whatever, I'm going to keep this non-political because that's not, I never make my videos political. That's never been my intent. But for anyone that doesn't know, I have been running the channel for 8 years. And by the way, for anyone that's not subscribed to the newsletter, guys, please subscribe to the newsletter. It's on the datingbeyondborders.com website. And what's really cool is we send out articles every week. We send out an article about culture, dating. And there's some really cool articles that we publish, like online dating apps around the world, and nudity, countries where nudity is the most common, and just tips on dating and meeting people around the world. But as well, I'm going to be soon releasing a quiz, and that quiz is going to be about what culture fits your personality the best. And the only quizzes that I've seen on this topic were just horrendous. So I really want to put in the work to make this a really, really solid quiz that's actually going to determine, based on the questions that you give, like what culture would be a good fit for you. And obviously, of course, people are people, so this is not set in stone. You don't have to go out and look for like a Finnish person just because I say that you are a good match with that culture. But it's, I think that's a question that everyone's always asking me, like what culture would work the best for me? And I think there's a way to actually kind of answer that more or less based on love languages and gender roles and all the other things that are important for you in a relationship. So stay tuned for that quiz. And if you haven't subscribed to the newsletter, go do it, because actually I just sent out a personal newsletter where I give you all the updates on my life. I do write these myself, so it's a very personal way for us to keep in touch, and also just for me to also see what you guys are interested in. And yeah, so hello from Finland, hello from Azerbaijan, hello from India, and let me see what questions you guys have. Okay, so the reason I also wanted to release this live stream and this live stream on Instagram is because I have a lot of updates and I have some really major updates about um, basically the state of the YouTube channel and what my next steps are going to be. For anyone that's been following for a very long time, you may know that the content has been changing a little bit. And I think it's a difficult time to create videos because there's just such a crazy oversaturation of content out there. So I think it's getting more and more difficult for me to publish a video once a week and keep up with all the crazy creators that are publishing every single day. That's not the easiest thing. So I decided to actually start making the videos a little bit, not more personal necessarily, but a little bit more vlog style, which is I think that's the thing that I've been trying to avoid, is doing vlog style videos. But I feel like there is a lot that I really want to share with you, and I definitely want to travel abroad and share. I would say like the focus that I want to start for the channel is going to be not so specifically around dating, but it's going to be more about connection around the world. Whether that's connection is making friends or creating romantic connections or really trying to understand culture and culture shocks. That's the aim that I'm going to now like go with my channel, because I feel like right now I really like the studio videos time to time. I do like the skit videos, like um living with different cultures or dating different cultures, though those are ones that are really, really difficult to make budget wise and just in terms of research. Those really take a lot of time. But I'm also going to introduce more the travel aspect to the videos, and going to travel myself with just the camera to film everything myself. And that's something that I haven't wanted to do because it's just a lot of work to film things yourself, but it's also, mm, I think, a way more authentic way for me to be in touch with you guys and for you to know who I am and to give you my perspective on the way I see things. So I think the channel is going to change that way. It's going to be a lot more complicated for me, but I always find that like the more you do something, the more your perspective on things changes and the more you grow as a person. So what used to be fun, like, oh, dating around the world, I still find that interesting, but I definitely want to get deeper into it. What makes us the way we are? What how does culture affect us? And what should we know about different cultures before we go there? And hey, Sammy, I'm actually going to be going to Norway. I know you've been asking me to come to Norway. I think I'll be there just for 2 days because it's so damn expensive in your country. Um, but definitely it's on my list. I'm going to Sweden first in 2 weeks, and then I'll do Norway, and then I'll do Estonia, and then I'll do Poland. So if you guys are in any of those countries, please let me know. I might actually make it all the way to Germany and to the Netherlands, as it's going to be a very long trip. And I'm going to focus on interesting topics like, why is Sweden the most difficult place to make friends? Sweden has been voted one of the most difficult places for expats just to make connections. And why is that? And of course, I've also wrote a book on it, which is Sex Before Coffee. If you haven't yet read it, you can do so for free on Kindle. And I talk about that as well. But I'm going to go to Sweden and actually talk to Swedes and talk to foreigners and explore that. That has to do with connection, not dating. But I think it's super, super important to know what it's like to connect with the Swedes, and also like the Swedish culture, the mentality, the views. Like that for me is very, very interesting. Um, and then I'm going to obviously do more on the dating in Sweden. I'm going to ask Swedes about dating each other versus dating foreigners. So there's going to be a lot of episodes coming from Sweden specifically. It's a very expensive trip. So I'm like, if I'm going to Sweden, I'm going to make it worth my while, because really going to make a lot of videos happen there. And yeah, and then uh, a few other countries along the way. As I said, if you're there, please reach out and maybe you can help me out. We can even just meet up for a coffee potentially. Yeah, someone says the channel name should be renamed to Connections Beyond Borders. Yeah, good point, but I don't want to change the channel name. But speaking of that, actually, you brought up a great point. I will have a podcast out in the next month, and that podcast is going to be called Beyond Borders. And the podcast is going to be on a new YouTube channel, and it's also going to be on Spotify and Apple and all those other places. And I'm going to be actually interviewing people from all around the world to talk about like the culture and the dating and how the culture affected them and their own personal experiences. So if you guys are looking for something a little bit more cultural connection specific, then this is perfect, because this is also, I'm going to talk about my personal experience. It's going to be a little bit more close and personal than anything that I've ever done before. So Sammy asks, what is the best way to reach out? Honestly, just DM me on Instagram. I read those messages. I respond to those messages. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch. Okay, in terms of Central Asia, someone's saying, are you going to do more dating and connection in Central Asia? I'm not traveling to Central Asia, but I will be featuring Mongolia and Kazakhstan in the newest video. And that's going to be do all countries, or do Asian countries date the same way? It's going to feature both Kazakhstan and Mongolia for that video. So we'll have a little bit more like Central Asian experience, because I don't think that enough is said about those countries for sure. Okay, let's see. I'm just going to go through your questions. And thank you for writing the review. Simon just said, I wrote your review. Thank you. That really means the world, because the reviews are very important on Amazon. And yeah, if you guys have anything good to say, then write a review. If you have nothing good to say, then just don't write a review. It's not, just keep it to yourself. Okay, let me see your question. Let's Learn English asks, Marina, was there any situation which changed your opinion about any country? I think, actually for me, I would say Finland was one of them. I was always under the impression that Finland was a very kind of cold place, and it always wins like the title of the happiest country in the world, like sixth year incoming happiest country in the world. But I recently did a podcast with my friend Varpu, who runs her Instagram page, Her Finlands, and we finished the conversation that we had in our Finnish video, and I was asking her, like, do you think that Finland is one of the happiest countries? And she said, yeah, like I do think that just the way we approach happiness is very different. And I don't know, it's not that I wouldn't necessarily think like Finland is the place that I would choose to be the happiest country. But I think the way we go about defining what happiness is very different. And I think they're a lot more content than many other countries, not just because of the good economical situation, but it's just the way they approach life. And it's, for them, it's more about having, it's more about doing it's less about having, and it's more about doing and being. So in the US and Canada, there's like a huge focus on acquiring. It's the material wealth and like climbing the ladder, and just everything should be work oriented, which is nice if you like your job and you feel like you're progressing. But in Finland, there's more of a focus on just enjoying your life apart from just your job. So I think that's something that's nice. That kind of like puts things in perspective. I still don't think Finland should be the happiest country in the world. I'm sorry, I just personally don't believe it. But I would say they are one of the most content people, and just the way they live their life, I think is just very different. So, and someone wrote, yeah, like being happy is so much easier when it's hot outside. 100%. That's why I'm saying, like, if you've ever been to Finland in November, you will know Finland does not feel like the happiest country in the world. If you've ever gone to Finnish supermarket and saw Finns and the way they interact, they don't look very happy. And she said as well that happiness is not something that is supposed to be showcased in Finland. But also, I think temperament is so different around the world. Like for Finns, it's absolutely okay not to have any interaction with anyone and to just live a life doing your own thing. And I think for so many cultures, that's such a crazy, um, not only deal breaker, but it's just if you're, let's say, Brazilian and you're watching this, to live a life with no interaction is like death. Like, how can you just be by yourself the whole time, right? So, I think what we defined as comfortable and what we see value in really differs around the world, and that's why I think um, understanding which cultures you're also compatible with is really great before you get into a relationship. I think so many of us are attracted to the exotic appeal of another culture. Let's say you live in Latin America and you see like a Swede and you think, wow, this is so different. They're so exotic. And I'm sexually attracted to them. I'm physically attracted to them. Unfortunately, when you get into the relationship, the differences, the cultural differences really do come up. If one is a very individualistic country and they just like to stay away from their family, they don't call their family that often, and you're very close to your family, that's going to be an issue. Potentially, that's going to be an issue down the road. And if you are someone that loves physical contact, like you're very tactile, then that might also be an issue if your partner's love language is not that. And if you need strong words of affirmation and you need that emotional um, drive, then um, if that culture doesn't see that as a love language, then that's not going to be a good fit either. So that's actually the reason that I'm creating the quiz. What culture is a good fit for you guys? So stay tuned when it's out, because if I'm going to do it well, it's going to be really something, and I'm really going to put in a lot of effort and also bring in potentially someone to help me with the research of this to really change um something. I'm not sure what we're changing yet, but yeah, it's going to be something really really interesting because it doesn't exist yet. And people are people, of course. Like maybe you're dating someone from Brazil and they don't identify or they don't relate to that culture at all. But even, having come to Canada 12 years old and not being maybe very Russian in so many ways, I still relate so well to the culture in aspects of it. So culture does influence who we are, whether we like to admit it or not. Sometimes we just don't realize it until we're somewhere else and we're dealing with a culture shock. So if you guys have any culture shock you want to share, go ahead. Like, I'd love to hear your stories, um, especially if you're living abroad. That's probably something you think about a lot. Okay. Um, let's see your questions. Someone says, I have an idea, maybe Jonathan. Hey, Jonathan. I have an idea. Maybe it's possible for one day to have fans and send videos in because there's so many countries we're missing. Definitely, very much so. I've actually considered hiring someone to film in countries that I'm unable to get to and having that person take care of that, because it's just I'm one person and that's going to be really difficult for me to travel to different countries. So that's something I'm considering if I'm going to expand, because obviously I do like filming a lot of stuff here and there are a lot of cultures here, but it's a very different feeling to travel to a different country and to ask someone who's never even been outside of their country what they think. That's a completely different viewpoint. And definitely, yeah. Okay, let's see. Someone just says, we want more Turkish content. We're actually filming a video tomorrow, what it's like to live with a Turkish woman. So stay tuned. There's definitely going to be more Turkish content, I promise. And we do have a lot of Turkish. I mean, I don't know more on Instagram or on YouTube, but I know on Instagram definitely there's a lot of Turkish people that watch the channel. um Kim is asking, when will you visit Chile? I have been to Chile. I have also dated a Chilean once upon a time. And unfortunately, this is when I was just starting the channel and I didn't really know how to film. So I don't have much that I filmed in Chile, but I have been. Mm. Let's learn English. Marina, which culture do you find close to your soul? Good question. Thank you for asking that. Um, I struggle with that question because I don't know. Honestly, I genuinely don't know what is close to my soul because I have friends from all over. Actually, the friend that I'm going to Sweden with is Finnish, but she has lived in Canada and she does have a bit of that like mixed mentality. Um, I think I like different aspects of different cultures. I don't know if there's one that specifically like I resonate with the most. I like the straightforwardness and directness of Serbish people, Serbian people. They're very like to the point, but they're very soulful, and I like that you kind of know where you stand with them. They'll be very direct um, about how they feel. They're not passive aggressive at all. And obviously, I do relate to the Russian mentality very much so because I was born in Russia and I've lived in Russia for 12 years and I have been back, of course. And my parents are Russian and I speak Russian with my mom and with my dad and with all my Russian friends. And that, of course, like if I have Russian girlfriends, um, then I find that we have so many things in common because just the mentality, right? The way we grew up and the way we see the world is often very similar. So definitely like my own culture. Canadian culture I don't resonate so much with, but I do appreciate the fact that they're very nice people. It's just that sometimes I don't understand it very well still, having been here for many, many, many years. Um, but I think people here, what I like about Canada is that people are very, I would say, like, if you want to have a very quick conversation in the elevator, people are very open about it. So, um, I think in many places around the world, people can just be very closed off and they don't welcome any kind of contact. And I know that they can open up once you get to know them better, but it's hard when you have to ask for help or directions or just anything like any kind of interaction. Canadians are really, really great with that. In terms of very, very close relationships, I don't think I have too many very close Canadian friends, but maybe that's just me. I'm not really sure, to be very honest. Um, I'm not really sure. I can't really answer that, but I have to think about that question. What is the culture closest to me? I do like the Southern European culture just because they're very warm. Um, and I can relate well to that as well. So I think it's a mix of different cultures. Okay, so let's see. So Louise Fly says, I have female friends who love to meet Eastern European men, but our culture is quite different. Where are you from? Let me know. By the name of Louise, I suppose Latin America or Portugal or Brazil. Guys, I'm going to make the announcement again. If you're in Sweden, Norway, Estonia, Poland, please DM me on Instagram. It's Dating Beyond Borders. And let me know if you want to help out with video production or just if you want to show me something around your city. Sweden, I'm going to be in Stockholm and Gothenburg, mostly in Stockholm. So if you're doing something for midsummer, then I would absolutely love to join. Me and my Finnish friends, Charlotta. So yeah, DM me, let me know. It's always cool to meet people in person. Like I have made so many friends that were subscribers. In the end, we ended up being friends. So I feel like, yeah, I don't ever have this kind of attitude problem where if someone comes up to me and says like, "Hey, I watch your channel," I'm like, like I don't have that problem at all. So if you see me anywhere in the world, definitely come and say hi. I'm gonna say hi back. Uh, the only thing is like I remember being abroad and like I think I was in Portugal and a guy came up to me and he was like, "I watch your channel." I was like, "Yeah, cool, okay, nice. I have a problem with so many videos that you make." I was like, "Okay." So that kind of stuff, I'm like, you know, if it's some advice, great. But yeah, starting off a conversation like that is not so great. Yeah, so Jonathan says I lived in Quebec and many people I met had 3, 4 friends who did not want to have more. This was in Quebec City. Montreal is more open. I do find the French side of Canada to be a lot more, as they say, more European and very different. Quebec definitely is a lot more closed up than Montreal. Montreal is a really cool city. And I almost moved to Montreal, but then I realized they had a really crazy winter. And I was like, I'm not so sure about that. Even though Toronto has also not so great winter. Um, okay, so let's take a look at your questions. And by the way, a question for you guys. Have you ever dated someone from another culture? And how did that go? Tell me. Tell me where you're from and where was this person from? Mm, I'm just looking to see if there's any questions here that I can answer. So Dernival, by the way, hey Dernival, I definitely see you commenting a lot on the videos, so that's cool. That's great. It's always nice to see the same familiar faces and the same names. So you say you're from Brazil and you dated a French girl. Okay. I'm from Cameroon, Erica, and with a Polish guy, talking stage with a Polish guy. Okay. And now, are there any cultural differences that you guys are seeing in those relationships? Because those are very, very different cultures. Cameroon and Poland, very much contrasting. I'm from Azerbaijan and I dated a Ukrainian man. Yeah, I think Azerbaijan and yeah, still a different culture, definitely. American dating a Brazilian, says Luca. We get along great, but they hate the US, which can make uncomfortable. They hate the US, Brazilians? I didn't know that. Interesting. I dated a Canadian girl, says Sammy, and Sammy, you're Norwegian. So I could see Canada and Norway kind of. I could see some similarities between the two. Um, Sammy, no, the Finnish girl Varpu is not the one that I'll be traveling to Sweden to. It's my other friend Charlotta. She was also in the video. She was the last girl that I interviewed, but she's a good friend of mine as well, actually. And that's something that was interesting for me is like making friends with Finnish people because you don't know so much about the culture until you go there and then you start making friends and then you realize how some of their stereotypes become not necessarily broken because I do think that there's some truth to the stereotypes, but when you get to know a person like one on one, then some of those stereotypes that you have about the culture, they definitely go away. Come from Spain and was dating Latinas almost all the time. Yeah, I find that's interesting because I feel like Spanish culture and Latin American culture, obviously Latin America is so big, but it's very, very different. I think even that just the idea of gender roles, because Spanish women are very, very independent, and Latinas, again, depending on where from, but more or less, they're still like they expect still some gender roles in the relationship for the man to potentially like plan the date, pay on the date. Whereas Spanish women, they're a lot more feminist that way. So I find that when people say like Spanish and Latin American is the same, I think that couldn't be further from the truth. I've been to China and dated Chinese, Russian, Thai, Uzbek, and Ukrainian. I'm from Peru, says Luis. Okay. Well, hello everyone that's just joining. Yeah, guys. So for anyone who has just joined, I'm just gonna kind of do the update again. So for anyone who doesn't know me, I run the channel, and my goal in the next few months is going to be so that you guys know me maybe a little bit more, because I want to start creating videos that will be done by me. And the reason for that, besides the fact that usually I work with a videographer when I travel, and that just gets really complicated, but I also want to bring you guys closer to what my experience would be of those countries, and to make it a little bit more authentic. So stay tuned for the videos because they will be different from the standard videos that I have up on the channel now. Um, and also stay tuned for the podcast Beyond Borders that is going to be going live in the next month, where also we'll be talking about cultures. And if there's anything you would absolutely love to see, then please let me know right now in the chat, or you can definitely just DM me as well and just say, I would love to see this featured more on the channel, because I do listen to what you guys like, or what you want to see. That you're obviously the audience that I make videos for, but I also want to make videos that resonate with who I am and provide value in the way that I want to provide value. So apart from the simplistic, like, you're dating, or you're living, those type of videos and the studio videos, I'm going to try to be going a little bit more in depth and trying to get deeper into like, why are we the way we are around the world? What influences us? I just finished the podcast with Clara, who you probably know if you watch the videos, and we talked about dating in Ireland and also the heavy drinking scene in Ireland and why that is. So it was such an interesting discussion. And then it goes beyond the stereotype of just Irish people drink a lot. Irish people are a lot of fun. Why is that? Like, why do they do what they do? And so my aim is going to be, I guess, more anthropological, but I want to get into the depth of, if you're from Norway and you're used to doing things your way and you're used to a certain kind of lifestyle, then why is that, So that's something that I'm really interested to discover. And as well, if people are going to Norway, what can they expect from the people, and what is going to be an absolute culture shock? Because there's going to be a lot of culture shocks about all of the uh, all of these cultures. Certain things just don't work very well. I talk about it in the book Sex Before Coffee. Obviously, if you've read it, great. But I talk about the fact that what you do and how much money you make is definitely not going to be as much of a defining factor, if at all. It's going to be a positive thing in somewhere like Scandinavia. So if you're someone that's coming from a culture where having a lot of money like China and showing like your material status, that's really important, and that's how you chat up a woman, and you kind of mentioned in there that you have this job and you do this, that's just not going to work the same way. And so those kind of culture shocks are really important in understanding different cultures. And I always think like, don't play by specifically the culture's rules, do what you do, but having an understanding is definitely really, really important when you're going somewhere, because we just all function in very different ways, right? So that's, yeah. And let me see. Yeah, Irish people are amazing. They're amazing people and they're very, I would say, genuine people. But we had this conversation with Clara and we talked about, I talked from my experience because I had a relationship with an Irish guy. And I just remember we went on vacation, we went dancing and he couldn't dance. But the whole time he was making fun of dancing, music, people, and there's just like a general discomfort with kind of doing something silly or trying something new in the Irish culture. We talked about that. And there's like a huge group mentality around the things that you do. And the reason you drink is because it's just something that everyone does. And it's so ingrained in the culture and you don't even question that. So that's something really interesting. And it's because we do think of Irish people as like, oh, they're fun, they drink a lot. But what's beneath all that, you know? And it's the same thing when we're talking about the Japanese culture, right? Like why is it that and I had a podcast with Utah, from that Japanese man Utah, and he was saying that in Japan you don't say I love you to your partner. um you just don't say that. And I said, but why? And he said, but why do you guys say I love you? And I said, I don't know, you want to express that, right? But I think Japanese love language, if we were to say, would not be one that would be words of affirmation or being very expressive. You just don't do that. But he said, what you do is when you come home, you always say I'm home. And when you leave, you say I'm leaving. So that's something you do, let's say, regularly. And if you don't do that, that's seen as weird as well. So is this kind of interesting things of like Americans say I love you all the time. And as a Russian, having been brought up with the Russian mentality, we just don't do that. We just don't say I love you because it's assumed. um, I would never hang up the phone and say I love you to my mom. That's just, I don't know, it's just uncomfortable. And we know we love each other, so we don't really need to say that. And I find with so many Scandinavians I talk to, that's also not a thing you would say in the Scandinavian language. It's just something that you're reserved for things that are very, very, very important, and you only say it once in a while. And I find that the American word love, you can say for so many things. And you can say it for loving pizza, loving this, loving friends. You'll say to someone that you just met, oh man, I love you. And I remember going out with a Dutch guy and he would watch American YouTubers. I think we were watching like Yes Theory, and there was a scene where the guy's like, they just met. They went on this trip together for 2 days, and at the end they're like, "Oh, I love you, man." And he was like, "But why would you say I love you?" Because they don't know each other. They just went on this trip for 2 days, and how can they love each other? They don't know each other well enough. And his thing was he would say often like, I want to reserve my big words for something very special. And that was the running joke where I would say, look, like, do you have an amount of words in your lifetime that you're able to dish out and use? Because if I see something beautiful, I'll say, wow, this is amazing. And Americans say amazing too much, and I'm not even American. But I think it's also very, very cultural. With so many cultures, like the Latin American culture, you say te quiero, te amo, um, but you use that so much. And you can say that to someone that you just met a day ago. But with certain cultures, they definitely hold back and they only say I love you when they genuinely have thought it over. They definitely mean it because it means a lot, and it has such a weight in their language. And it's definitely not the same in English. It just doesn't have that same weight in English because you use it so much. So the way we use language is also so interesting, like culture to culture, and the way that the language kind of changes the way we think and the way we express ourselves is also super interesting. I think in Sweden you don't really have the word for please that you use, so you would never say could I have that please. You'd say I want this, thank you. And maybe it's the same in Norway, Sami. I think it's probably, I mean, it's the same language, so you probably do the same thing. But yeah, that stuff I find really, really fascinating beyond just who pays on a date or who calls, or as we know, dating nowadays is bad. It's bad all over the world. So when people ask me like, what's the best place to date? I'm like, I don't know, guys. I really don't know. I feel like we're all taking on this very westernized approach when it comes to dating, and this very non-committal approach. And obviously I'm not talking about places like India or, other places that are still not so westernized. But yeah, dating is a disaster. Um, in so many countries. So um unfortunately, where is dating great? I wish I could tell you guys where dating is great. Obviously, I haven't dated all around the world. It's not what I do. Um, maybe I should hire someone who dates around the world, and then we can have updates from different places. Like, oh, Spain was a wonderful place for me to go on a date. But I genuinely think there's no point, because I do think that obviously it's there's so many factors that go into it. But and Sammy, that's a great point. Dating in the US is not great. I do think that there is an issue with American dating, and also I would say Canadian dating when it comes to Toronto, which is very similar to the US where I live, is that there's this idea of dating around that I talk about so much because I don't understand it. And dating around meaning you can date so many different people at the same time, and until you figure out that you really want to date someone for real and you have the talk, then you're able to just date around. And I feel like I have a huge issue with that, because I feel like it's the bigger, better deal. You're always on the lookout for something better, and you never stop looking. And this idea of dating many people at the same time just does not sit well with me. And when I talked to Varpo, again, we talked about dating in Finland. She said in Finland, you don't really do that. You find someone and you kind of just start seeing each other. There's not that concept of dating around. I think that's a very American thing. I don't think that's just happening in the US, unfortunately. I do think in so many parts of the world, like the UK, even France right now, they are taking on this very Americanized approach to dating. Like dating around has become more of a thing in bigger cities. Australia, very much the same. I think all the Anglophone countries are very much the same, but dating around. So I do think it's definitely not just the US. But I wish, if there is a country where you don't do that, please let me know. If there's a country where you meet someone and then you start kind of seeing each other, that I would be interesting to hear where you would do that. And of course, I understand in the Middle East and in Africa, it's very different. So I think maybe it's just the westernized version, the Western approach. Okay, so Sammy says men in the US are too scared, even making a move or approaching women in the US can result in Me Too. Yeah, I think I'm very much against that as well, because I think and this is the very Russian side of me, because I do think women are um, very responsible for creating the world that we live in. We are at fault, not me, because I was never for this. But I think this idea of always overstepping the line, um, always this fear of sexual harassment can be perceived in so many different ways that nowadays men don't really know what to do. They're being punished for things that, like talking to a woman and paying her compliments, because women they do have a very interesting dynamic of saying, if someone they don't find attractive approach them, they'll say he's a creep, and why did he talk to me, and get away from my face. But if it's someone attractive, that's a different rule. So I think women are very much responsible for making men uncomfortable with the approaching. And I also think that online dating nowadays has made it very, there's too many options. We are dealing with way too many options, and people shouldn't have this many options. Like, our brain is literally incapable of dealing with having that many options. We have what is called paralysis analysis. When I go on a dating app and I go through left, right, it never ends. The search never ends. And so we're always going to be on the lookout for something better. And I think that's such a horrible way to go about dating, because you're always going to find flaws in no matter who you meet. But we're on a constant search for better, 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 and especially in the Western world, in the US and in Canada as well. There is this constant search for the bigger, better deal, which I find is such a problem. I mean, if we look at dating way back in the day, what happens? A man meets a woman. He knows that he should make the first move. He approaches her. He maybe gets her number. When he gets her number, he has to then call her and ask her on a date. Immediately, what happens is he invests in her, and because she's the only woman he's going to meet in like months maybe, right? Unless he goes out again and he does that again, and that's very difficult to approach a woman, to risk rejection. So he goes through that, and then he's invested in her enough and he asks her on a date, and then maybe she says yes, and then that's a relationship, right? Nowadays there is no risk involved, there's no rejection involved, there's nothing involved in getting someone on a date or getting someone to sleep with you. It can go as simple as, hey, you want to come over? Okay. And so men have lost that. I would say, I would say like men have lost this. I don't want to say manliness, but yeah, really, like men have lost also. They're, as Sammy said, they're scared to approach is one thing, but they don't need to approach either because they can just use the online dating apps. And women are on a constant competition mode, and in a constant like checking mode of what he's doing wrong, or how the red flags. We're always out looking for red flags nowadays. This is a red flag, and TikTok doesn't help. Red flags in this, red flags in that. This is, I'm better than this. It's all about this. It's about me. It's about me and my ego. So I think men and women are to blame. Our society is now just very different than what it was. So sorry, that was my ramble, guys, about the dating scene nowadays. I just think if you agree, let me know in the comments below. But I do think it's a pain, and not just here in North America, in Europe as well. And I used to say like Europe, the dating is the best. I don't know if that's so true anymore, but I definitely do think that the American um, way of looking at dating is flawed. It's very flawed for so many ways. Um, so yeah. Okay, so and Darnaval says, yeah, US are worried about trying to date someone and getting a lawsuit. Yeah, of course. I mean, if you like someone, it's a really tricky road nowadays to approaching to um yeah, it's definitely it's becoming a very weird world that we live in. I'm not gonna get into it, but I definitely have an opinion on it. Um And again, online dating make women or men like commodities, like shopping on Amazon. That's exactly what I think about the dating in North America. It's very much commodity based. It's about getting the best product and having that product stand the test of time with the same exact quality that it was when you first met that product, right? Like when you move in with someone and you expect that 7 years down the line, you're still as passionate about each other. Good luck. It's not gonna happen. Like people are so unrealistic nowadays, right? Like I'm all for passion and emotion, like I'm all for it, but I also have to be realistic that we're no longer getting married. We don't have that. We don't a lot of us are not having children, so there's no progress in the relationship. We're just moving in together, and then we're expecting for the relationship to stay the way it was years ago. And I think it's crazy. Okay. Sammy, you have so many thoughts. You have to meet me in Norway and do an interview because I think there's a lot that we can talk about. Um, I think you raised so many great points. Um, exactly. And if you get rejected on a dating app, you don't really know that you're being rejected because you don't see it. So you're right. Exactly. We don't want to see it. We don't want to face any discomfort in this world that we live in nowadays. Everything is so we're such victims nowadays, right? Everything is, we complain about everything. So people are not, I don't know, people have very thin skin nowadays. Gaitan asks, what cultures have their families the most involved in their child's relationship? Well, I would say this would be all like so many cultures. South Asian culture is very much involved, to the point where, of course, arranged marriages come into place. And I would say also like Southeast Asians have their families genuinely get involved. Uh, I would say also Armenian parents and Georgian parents are they're very close knit communities. And I would say the least would be definitely, again, we talked about Sweden, but Swedish people are very individualistic, and the families, and they live their separate lives. Like in many cultures, you would never put your parents in a retirement home because the idea is that you take care of them. Um, And I don't know which one is better or worse, to be very honest. That I think both have their benefits and their downfalls. So so yeah, the idea of approaching someone, I just don't think people feel the need to approach someone, because why would you approach someone if there's no point in approaching someone if you can just get on a dating app, right? But for me personally, I think dating apps, they're they're tiring, because the thing is, you see what the person looks like, but you don't see the way they move, the way they talk, um the things that make them attractive. So if I'm looking at a dating app, the criteria would be a very different for when I'm meeting someone in real life. In real life, height plays a less of an importance, age plays less of an importance, status plays less of an importance. Like all those things, it's more about the person that you see in front of you. And also, I love the idea of like meeting someone in real life and that first moment when you notice each other, and the feelings that go through your minds, feelings that go through your heart, uh, and that first moment, as opposed to you get on the date and you're sitting there in front of each other and you know why you're there, and you know that you have to right away make some sort of a decision whether or not you want to see this person again. So there's a lot more pressure put on the like on those meetings through a dating app. I think it has simplified life a lot, the dating apps, but I think it also has made our lives so much more difficult, because now we have this, I say it's like, it's like a cheap store. You go into like a cheap Chinese shop. There's so many of those around all your cities, where you go to a Chinese shop and there's such a variety of clothing, but when you approach the clothing, it's not very good quality. But you have so many, and or a buffet where you're eating the food, but you're not really enjoying the food because there's so many other dishes that you should be trying out, and it's really hard to pay attention to whatever you have in front of you. That's what happens when you have that much choice. And that's what I hate about the dating apps. It's just this incredible amount of choice, to the point where you're numb. Like you can't even choose anything anymore. And I can't even imagine how the men do it, because the men, I mean, I would say you have such a huge variety of, you can go 20 to whatever up, right? So for women, I think it's a little bit more difficult. This is my opinion, by the way. I know that some men think that it's a lot more easy for the women. I don't know. I don't know. Um, Guy Tan says, Marina, what do you think about women approaching men? I think, personally think that it's great that if a woman approaches a man, if she's not like, hey, come to my place. Like if she's maybe not so manly about, like she's not so assertive about it. And if what advice would I give to women for approaching men? I think, as long as you don't make it very obviously like, hey, I thought you were hot. Some men would love it. I think all men would love it, but you can start a conversation without it being very, very obvious. You just kind of give someone a chance to talk to you. You can even make a comment on something like, oh, I love this song. And that's just a conversation starter. It doesn't have to be very obvious, like, you're so sexy and I saw you from across the room. Because I still think that men should be the ones to play the more assertive part. But I think the women can definitely say something, right? Especially in this world where men don't know how it works anymore, right? They're maybe very uncomfortable around being the ones to approach first. So that simplifies things. All right. Sorry, guys. Instagram, I've neglected you. Let me take a look, guys. I have maybe 5 more minutes and then I have to jump off. But I really love these conversations, even though it's a one-way conversation. I'm literally the only one talking. By the way, I don't know what to do with these requests, guys. If you're sending me a request, what am I? Are these questions? Oh, they're questions. Sorry, I'm literally just filling this out. What do I think about Turkish guys? um, I don't know. I have never dated a Turkish guys. I'm sorry, a Turkish guy. I think they're attractive. A lot of attractive men, and they are. I mean, watching Turkish soap operas, I just think it's the notion of what relationships are and love is very like bright and colorful, and I don't know. I'll tell you once I know. Um, okay, and I'll post that. So I'm gonna post some of your questions. I have a lot of female friends, and I like some of them. How can I convey my feelings? So you have female friends, and you like not just one, but all of them or some of them. Um, that's a tough one. I don't know how I can give you advice on that. I think this is a tricky road because if you're friends with them, then it can ruin your friendship. But if it's someone that you can avoid seeing after you tell them about your feelings, then I'd say I would say the best thing to do is just to ask them to go somewhere one on one, and then you can gauge the amount of interest um, that is there. What I would have done, I have a friend and he's interested in a friend of mine, and he basically just asked her out to do something, like to do something just one on one, but nothing that is like a fancy dinner, but something that you can kind of see if someone's into you or not. Um, you can usually tell. I think with a woman, you can tell if she's sitting closer to you, if she, prolonged eye contact, if she responds to you whenever you message her and she's like fairly quick to respond, that's usually a good sign. Okay. Let's see if I have any other question. You can share your experiences right here because I just put your question up. Definitely you can do that. And going back to my YouTube. Marina, what's the most memorable way you've been approached, flirted with? Oof. Oh my God. Good question. The most memorable in a good way or in a bad way? Because I could say like in a funny way, I always say like Argentinian men are the ones that are Brazilians as well, but I would say they're the most, they don't take no for an answer. And I think I think it's funny. Like I remember one, there was an Argentinian guy that he was trying to hit on me, and he would sing songs about me. He didn't care. Like I think that was kind of funny because he was so just easygoing with it that yeah, it was actually it worked. It worked a little bit. Like he didn't care. But honestly, if I like someone, it doesn't matter how they approach me. As long as I feel like they're genuine, they have a decent sense of humor, and I think that the most important quality, by the way, this is super 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 important, guys. If you're listening, like this is, and I don't think just in dating, but I think the most important quality overall in a person is the ability to listen. I think this is so, so, so overlooked because I think so many people are so self centered. So when you have a conversation with them, they're always trying to bring it back to themselves. And I know women definitely do this a lot. And I know definitely North American women do this a lot for sure. But I think for men, I think one of the wonderful qualities is if a man is genuinely interested, he takes the time to like listen to you, and he kind of he sees you, like he sees who you are as a person. And if, of course, this has to come down, if are you attracted to this person, are you interested? But I think having someone like that, and I, not that someone doesn't take no for an answer, but I think yeah, maybe don't be afraid to give up so fast, because I think when someone fights for you, I think that's such a great feeling. And I think we've lost that ability to fight for someone. Like someone's not interested. Okay, cool. Bye bye. So I think a man who can fight a little bit, and I know that's a fine line nowadays with the sexual harassment. I'm not saying like, yes, it's a tricky world we live in, but I think a man who's a bit more assertive, that's always nice. And a sense of humor, like laid back, not like pushy and annoying, but just kind of laid back, and someone who yeah, someone who's not overwhelming you, but Guys, I don't know. That's such a hard question to answer because I think if I'm interested in someone, I'll also initiate. I mean, but this is just me. I'm not going to wait for him to initiate. I'll kind of hint around maybe doing something and then we would just do something together. So I think attraction is definitely the number one thing, unfortunately or fortunately, with this kind of thing. Um, yeah, Daredevil says, I wanted to know if I would be arrested by trying to strike a conversation in Norway. Yes, so there is a part of, and if you've read the book, and if you haven't read the book, it's super funny. I interviewed an American blogger, and she said that she went on a date with this Norwegian guy. This was in the north of Norway, Tromsø, I think. And she said that he basically wouldn't make a move on her. And then eventually, I think by the third date, he was like, "Can I kiss you?" And she said, "Yes, you can." And he said, "Can I have your consent?" And I found that to be super, super funny because I was like, genuinely, did you take out a piece of paper and say, like, so and so, sign the form. Here you go. And that's a true story. I don't know, Sammy, tell us. What do you think? Would you be arrested or was it just this guy? Okay, guys, I'm going to take on a couple more questions and then I'm going to uh, finish up. What do you think if someone says Sage? What do you think if someone of a different culture tells you they want a relationship with you, then you watch them flirt and get close to other people in front of you? I think no matter where they're from, dump them because, or I don't look. I think culture is culture, but I personally don't think you should never ever make any real excuses for someone from a different culture. And having said that, like there are some cultures that definitely do that more than others. I think in certain cultures as well, and I think, for example, like Latin American culture, Argentina specifically, I've had that happen to me. I was in a relationship with an Argentinian, and I've had that happen to me, and I did make the excuse of, oh, it's just what they do, and I do think there is some truth to that because I think it's a way to get jealous, get you to be jealous, because I think jealousy is such an important part of the relationship. As for Turkish people, for example, like making someone jealous, there's this thing that, for example, tomorrow we'll be filming it, but there's this big thing of Turkish women making men jealous or like hoping that they'd be jealous of them and then being jealous back. And I think that's seen as not healthy, but it's seen as kind of an exciting part of the relationship. And there's nothing pleasant about having someone flirt with someone else in front of you. So I don't care where they're from. It's just not something you do. And I think if you guys are in a relationship, just sit them down and say, like, is this something that you think should be a part of our relationship? Like flirting with other people when we're together, because this is not something that works for me, doesn't make me feel very good. And talk about it because it could be a cultural difference, but I don't think it really matters if it makes you feel really, I mean, uncomfortable and also, yeah, just uncomfortable, just horrible. So, yeah. Um, Gaitan says, with all the varied cultural experiences that you have, could you give us ideas for unique dates? So, me personally, I love the activity style dates. I'm very Nordic that way, I have discovered. I personally think that having a more casual date is better than having a fancier date. And here's why. If you go to a restaurant and you sit in front of each other and you eat food, that's uncomfortable, right? Now you not only have to watch the conversation, but you have to focus on stuff not being stuck in your mouth. And that's not an easy date. Also, I find that both of you tend to be on your best behavior, or our behavior tends to shift in different places, right? In a church, you're quiet. In a library, you're quiet. At a party, you're loud. In a restaurant, in a fancy restaurant, you're going to be behaving a certain way. And I don't think that's necessarily true for who you are. And for me, what makes me attracted to someone is seeing the quirks of their personality come off. Like I see who they are as a person, right? And I also think the other uncomfortable thing about a restaurant date is that you're basically forced to make conversation, and you cannot just observe the person from the sidelines. And I think a lot of times we fall for someone when we just see them, like observing them, And also, having those natural pauses in the conversation is going to happen so much easier when you're not facing each other, like it's a restaurant or it's an interview. And so, personally, I don't care what it is that you do on a date, but I think it should be something where you can do some that activity. It doesn't really matter, but definitely not a movie style date because you don't talk, but also not a restaurant style date. Obviously, what you do on a date doesn't really matter. I think what matters is that you connect to the person and you have a good conversation. And if you could keep it easy, then all the better. Like I lived in Mexico for half a year, and my favorite date was just going to the beach. Hey, let's grab a beer. Let's go to the beach. It doesn't have to be fancy. I don't need you to spend an X amount of money on me. And I just want to get to know you, and then we can maybe do the restaurant date or whatever the third or second or third time. But the most important thing in the first date should be just that, yeah, who is this person, right? And like doing something together as well, like really brings you together faster. So if you could do a couple of things throughout the date, like if you could go there first, you could go there second, then it makes it feel like it's a longer date than it really is. Oh, hey Oleh, this is my editor, guys. How are you doing? He's actually based in Ukraine, so any video that you've seen done in the past, I'd say Oleh, like a year or so, right? Has been all edited by him. So give him a hand, give him like a clap because he's in Ukraine and he's always dealing with one issue or another, like power outages and things like that. But he's such a great guy to work with. Really, like such a having a good editor, guys, is like 50% of the success because I've had so many issues in the past, and like we have issues. We just had an issue yesterday, and just having someone who's there to be like, don't worry, I have it all taken care of. And by the way, this is a good point because I think this is a very Eastern European um, male quality to say, I can take care of it. And I think it's also very attractive. So if you're a guy and you're with someone, then there's nothing more attractive than a man who can say, you have your light is not working, I'll take care of it. And I tend to put it in my videos a lot when it comes to like Eastern European men, but it's just something, especially when you're dating an Eastern European woman, that's something that is such a huge turn on for any Eastern European woman. I don't care who she is, she's gonna find that attractive. So not so much maybe about the Nordic women because they want to split the chores down the middle, but yeah, if you want to date Eastern European. So thank you guys for reading. Allega's like, please, Marina, stop that. No, I genuinely mean it. Like, I genuinely mean it. Okay, let's see if I have any last question that I'm taking on. And guys, if you have any other questions, like DM me. I definitely don't have the time to go through and answer everyone. But if there's something that you had in mind, definitely send it over, and maybe I'll have the time to go through it and actually try to answer it. And I'm different, but I'm all about for genuine connections, and I hope you guys are looking for that genuine connection. And I think in a world where people tend to play so many games, it's always so nice to meet someone who has a genuine sense of self, who is intelligent, obviously, and who doesn't take themselves too seriously as well. It's always nice to meet someone with a great sense of humor, and a gentleman is great in any country. So always be a gentleman. And I feel like I'm just talking to men here, but women, um, be a woman. I mean, I think it's always so great when a woman is there to support a man, like, and also be that nice feminine, have that nice feminine touch in her as well. And I think we're losing that by competing so much with the men, because I think there's some beauty in gender roles, really. I don't think that needs to be like set in stone, but I think there's some beauty in, I personally love to cook, and I think it's so nice to to cook something for someone. But in general, just having like that partnership where I think you're both supporting each other and you're willing to put the work in, and you're not just there for the best times, but you're generally trying to make it work. I think that's something that I feel is going away in so many countries because we're so much about our ego and all about ourselves. And I hope we go back to those values. I really think they're needed. And less of those damn TikTok videos with the red flags and the I deserve this. You don't deserve anything. Not one of us deserves anything, but especially when we make videos like that. So, um, a little bit more humility is something that I think is needed in our world, and especially in the North American world, I would have to say. And again, sorry for the ramble. Let me see if I have one more question. And let's see if what I, oh, 3 more questions. And if you guys have any other questions about cultures, where can you write that? I'm trying to think. What is the good way to write it? Because I just had a question of like Finnish men are so difficult to read, and obviously I'm not able to target to talk about all cultures of the world in this episode. But I might start a members only community where maybe we can talk about these things. And if that's something you guys like, then also let me know, because I have been thinking of another project to add to the channel, and maybe a members only would be kind of cool for all those people that are interested in cultures, interested in dating, or even just finding out how we all, what the values are around the world, and even meeting each other around the world. Maybe that's gonna help that. So um, let's start a Patreon, says Sammy. Sammy, I have tried. It was not very easy and it didn't go very well, but maybe I'll try it again once I start doing the vlog style videos. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I definitely agree with a lot of the things that you guys are writing. Okay, guys, I have so many questions here that I'm not able, unfortunately, to answer, as I have to jump on and do a million other things. But thank you so, so much for. Sorry, I'm going like this. And I do see all of you in the questions. Thank you all so much for joining, and thank you so much for any support that you've been showing the channel. It has been going through tough times. And as you can see, it's the new era videos haven't been, unfortunately, doing so well, whether that's the algorithm or maybe it's just not resonating with the audience. That's unfortunately what it is, like creating videos and constantly creating content. So many things evolved, but hopefully the next videos that come up are gonna resonate with you guys. Next one is about Europeans. The next one is about living with a Turkish woman. So we're gonna hit a lot of countries with those ones. And yeah, and definitely always reach out, because I want this to feel like a community. I don't want it to feel like just me making videos and that's it. I want it to feel like a communication and interaction. So it's always so cool to meet you guys. All right. Have a wonderful day or evening wherever you are. And thank you so much for joining in. Thanks, Sammy. Have a great day as well. And for the rest of you guys as well, thank you so much for joining in. And hopefully I'll try to do these ones more often than I have in the past, because I haven't done them so much in the past. So I'll tune in a little bit more often now to give you some updates and have some chats. And if you have any questions, that's like a perfect time to ask. So awesome. Okay. See you all sometime in the world as well. Don't forget to reach out if you're in Sweden, Norway, Estonia, or Poland, or Germany. And yeah. Ciao, ciao, everyone. Bye.